I've always been last. Last to crawl. Last to walk. Last to speak my first fumbling words while my older siblings were already reciting poetry and impressing our parents' distinguished guests. I was last to understand the alphabet, last to read, last to grasp the simplest mathematical concepts that seemed to flow like water through my brothers' and sisters' brilliant minds. My name is Park Chung-hee, and I am the fourth child of the illustrious Park family, one of Korea's most prominent chaebol dynasties. My father, Park Jin-woo, built an empire in telecommunications. My mother, Han So-young, came from old money, the kind that whispered of nobility and ancient prestige. Together, they produced 3 exceptional children. My eldest brother Park Min-jae, sharp as a blade and twice as cutting. My second brother Park Sung-min, a mathematical prodigy who spoke in equations. And my sister Park Ji-won, beautiful and cunning, who could negotiate million-dollar deals before she turned 20. And then there was me. I remember the day I brought home my first report card from elementary school. I was 8 years old, my fingers trembling as I handed the paper to my father in his imposing study. The room smelled of leather and expensive whiskey, of success and expectations I could never meet. Last place? My father's voice was quiet, which was somehow worse than if he had shouted. In every subject? I tried APA, I whispered, my eyes already stinging with tears I'd learned to hold back. I studied every night. I really did. My mother stood by the window, her silhouette perfect against the Seoul skyline. She didn't even turn around. How can a child of mine be so deficient? Deficient. That word would haunt me for years. My sister Ji-won laughed from the doorway, her voice like crystal breaking. Maybe there was a mix-up at the hospital, Amma. Surely no Park could be this stupid. I'm not stupid, I said, but my voice was so small even I barely heard it. Then prove it, my eldest brother Min-jae said, appearing behind Ji-won. Stop embarrassing this family. But I couldn't prove it. Not in the ways they wanted. School was worse. While my siblings attended the most prestigious academy in Seoul, I barely scraped into a decent school, and even there, I struggled. I would stay up until 3 in the morning, reading the same passages over and over, trying to force the information into my brain where it simply refused to stick. Chemistry formulas swam before my eyes like foreign languages. Historical dates tangled themselves into knots. Mathematics might as well have been ancient hieroglyphics. I came in last place. Or second to last if I was lucky. Sometimes fourth from the bottom, which my parents treated as no achievement at all. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? My mother hissed one evening after parent-teacher conferences. We were in the car, the driver pretending not to hear. Your teacher actually pitted me. Pitted? Han being pitted. I'm sorry, Amma. Your apologies mean nothing. Your brothers never needed to apologize because they never gave us reason to be ashamed. The bullying at school was relentless. Being an Omega made it worse. I was delicate, soft-featured, with pink lips and gentle brown hair that fell into my eyes. The alphas at school loved to remind me that I was worthless, both academically and as a person. Hey, Park, they'd shout across the courtyard. Did you score another 0? Or did you manage to get a 10 this time? They'd shove my books from my desk, trip me in the hallways, lock me in the bathroom during lunch. Once, they threw my homework in the fountain, and when I tried to fish it out, they pushed me in too. I came home soaking wet, my carefully completed math assignment dissolving into pulp. My father took one look at me and shook his head. You can't even keep yourself dry. Pathetic. But there was one thing, one secret thing, that I was good at. I discovered it by accident when I was 12. There was an art class, an elective that my parents dismissed as frivolous but allowed because it was required. The teacher, Mrs. Kim, a kind woman with paint perpetually under her fingernails, handed us brushes and watercolors and told us to paint whatever we felt. I stared at the blank paper, and for the first time in my academic life something clicked. My hand moved without overthinking. Colors bloomed across the white surface, blues and purples melding into a twilight sky, golden light breaking through clouds, a single bird in flight. I lost myself completely, unaware of time passing, of the other students packing up, of Mrs. Kim standing behind me with her hand pressed to her mouth. Chung-hee, she whispered. This is extraordinary. I blinked, coming back to reality. Really? You have a gift. A real, genuine gift. For the first time in my life, someone looked at me with something other than disappointment or contempt. She looked at me with wonder. I threw myself into painting after that. Every spare moment, I drew and painted and sketched. In art, the rules made sense to me. Color theory, composition, light and shadow. These were languages I understood instinctively, the way my brothers understood calculus and my sister understood economics. I finally worked up the courage to show my parents during dinner one evening. I was 15 and I'd spent 3 weeks on a piece, A oil painting of our family garden, every flower rendered in painstaking detail, the play of sunset light captured in shades of amber and rose. Appa Amma, I said, my voice shaking as I held up the canvas. I wanted to show you something. I'm really good at painting. Mrs. Kim says I could even. Painting? My father's chopsticks paused midway to his mouth. You're showing me painting? I thought, maybe I could go to art school. Maybe this could be. No. The word fell like a guillotine. Absolutely not. But Appa, I'm good at this. I could make a career. A career? My mother's laugh was sharp, brittle. Painting? In this family? We are industrialists, business people, leaders. We are not artists. She said the word like it was something dirty. My teacher says I have real talent. Your teacher is filling your head with nonsense, my father interrupted. You struggle with real subjects, important subjects, and you want to waste time with paint and canvas? This is exactly why you're failing, Chungi. You chase worthless dreams instead of applying yourself to what matters. But this is what I'm good at. I was crying now, unable to stop myself. Please just look at it. Really look. Sungmin snatched the canvas from my hands. He examined it with cold eyes, then handed it back. It's mediocre at best. You're fooling yourself if you think this is special. It's not mediocre, I whispered. Face reality, little brother, Ji-won said not unkindly, which somehow made it worse. You're not good at academics and you're not good at art. You're just not good at anything. The sooner you accept that, the easier your life will be. You're dismissed, my father said, returning to his meal. And I don't want to see any more paintings. Focus on your studies. Try, for once, to be less of a disappointment. I fled to my room and cried until I couldn't breathe. Then I did what I always did, I painted. I painted my pain, my frustration, my desperate need to be seen. The canvas became my only friend, the only place where I wasn't last, wasn't stupid, wasn't a disappointment. But my family had made their position clear. My talent was worthless. I was worthless. The years dragged on like a prison sentence. I graduated high school, barely, with grades that made my parents' faces tighten with disgust at the ceremony. They didn't take photos. Didn't celebrate. My brothers and sister had had parties, guests, acknowledgement of their achievements. I got a cold dinner and a lecture about how I'd finally managed the bare minimum. I was 18, an omega in a society that already looked down on my designation, from a powerful family that saw me as its greatest shame. The pressure to present as an alpha had always been intense in our family, but even among omegas I was considered a failure. I'd managed to get into a lower-tier university, accepted into their general studies program because my art portfolio, submitted secretly, had apparently impressed someone. But my parents didn't know that. They assumed I'd barely scraped in through connections and family name. At least try not to embarrass us there, my mother said the night before I was supposed to start. Though I suppose that's too much to hope for. That night I was in my room working on a painting, a piece that had been consuming me for weeks. It was my most ambitious work yet. A phoenix rising from ashes, wings spread wide, every feather detailed in golds and crimsons and brilliant oranges. It represented everything I felt, everything I hoped to become. I was so absorbed I didn't hear my father enter. Still wasting time with this nonsense. I spun around, paintbrush clutched in my hand. Appa. He crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed the canvas. How many times have we told you? How many times? Please, that's not finished. He threw it to the ground. The wooden frame cracked. Paint smeared across the floor. No more, he said, his voice terrible in its quietness. No more of this foolishness. You will go to university, you will study business like your brothers, and you will stop this pathetic fantasy that you have any artistic talent. I do have talent. The words burst from me, years of silence finally breaking. I do. Just because I can't memorize formulas or understand economics doesn't mean I'm worthless. I'm good at this, Appa. I'm really, really good at this. His hand cracked across my face. I'd never been hit before. The shock of it was worse than the pain. Don't you dare raise your voice to me. Don't you dare tell me what you are or aren't good at. You are a failure, Chummy. A disappointment. An embarrassment to the park name. My mother appeared in the doorway, my siblings crowding behind her. None of them looked surprised. None of them came to my defense. Maybe, my mother said slowly, we've been too lenient, too patient. Clearly, our kindness has been mistaken for weakness. I just want to paint, I whispered, my hand pressed to my burning cheek. Why is that so wrong? Because you're a park. Min-jae shouted from the hallway. Parks don't paint. Parks don't create meaningless art. Parks build empires. And you can't even build a proper sentence in an essay. We've given you everything, my father said. The best schools, tutors, opportunities, and you've squandered it all. Thrown it back in our faces. I tried. Not hard enough. Never hard enough. My mother's eyes were cold as winter. Perhaps it's time we stop wasting resources on someone who refuses to improve. Someone who actively chooses failure over success. I don't choose failure, I said, tears streaming down my face. I can't help that my brain works differently. I can't help that I don't understand the things you want me to understand. But I can paint, Amma. I can create beautiful things. Isn't that worth something? No, she said simply. It isn't. The words shattered something inside me. My father's expression hardened. You have 1 year. 1 year to prove yourself at university. If you come home with the same pathetic grades, the same excuses, the same refusal to be what this family needs you to be, then you're no longer our son. You don't mean that, I whispered. Try me. They left me there, standing in my room surrounded by broken canvas and spilled paint, the phoenix I'd created now a ruined mess on the floor. I didn't sleep that night. I tried to salvage the painting, but the damage was too severe. Another thing destroyed. Another piece of me ground into nothing. University was supposed to be different. I'd hoped, desperately, that away from my family's constant criticism, I might find my place. But the academic work was just as impossible as before. I attended lectures where professors spoke languages I couldn't comprehend. I wrote papers that came back bleeding red ink. I failed exams I'd studied weeks for, the information evaporating from my mind the moment I sat down with the test paper. And all the while in my small dorm room I painted. I painted the Seoul skyline at night, lonely and beautiful. I painted abstract emotions in bold strokes. I painted portraits of strangers I saw on the subway, their stories written in the lines of their faces. My art professor, Professor Lee, pulled me aside after class one day. Park Chung-hee, I need to speak with you. My stomach dropped. Another failure, another disappointment. But Professor Lee smiled. Your technical skills are remarkable. The emotional depth in your work is something I rarely see in students your age. Have you considered pursuing art seriously? My family won't allow it, I said quietly. That's unfortunate. You have genuine talent, Chung-hee. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But anyone included everyone who was supposed to love me. The final break came during winter break of my first year. I came home with my grades, failed economics, failed business management, barely passed Korean literature. The only A I had was in my art elective. My father looked at my transcript for exactly 5 seconds. Get out. Appa, please let me explain. Get out. His voice was like iron. You've had your chance. Multiple chances. You've proven that you're incapable of meeting even the lowest expectations. I'll do better, I promise. Your promises mean nothing. They never have. He stood towering over me. You are not my son. Not anymore. A son of mine would have honor, intelligence, drive. You have none of these things. Please, I begged, and I hated myself for begging, but terror was clawing at my throat. Please don't do this. I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My siblings watched with expressions ranging from pity, Ji-won, to contempt, Min-jae, to indifference, Sung-min. Amma, I tried, turning to her desperately. Amma, please. You did this to yourself, Chummy, she said softly. We gave you every opportunity. You chose to waste them. I didn't choose this. I can't help how my brain works. I'm not doing this on purpose. Excuses, my father spat. Always excuses. Pack your things. I want you gone within the hour. But my heat suppressants, my medication. Should have thought of that before you decided to be a failure. I stumbled to my room in a daze. This couldn't be happening. Families didn't just throw away their children. But as I shoved clothes into a bag with shaking hands, I realized that's exactly what was happening. I was being discarded. Min-jae appeared in my doorway. For a moment I thought he might help, might say something kind. You brought this on yourself, he said instead. Don't come crawling back. When reality hits, you made your choice. Live with it. I didn't choose anything, I whispered. Yes, you did. You chose painting over your family. You chose to be worthless. I wanted to scream that it wasn't a choice, that being good at something shouldn't be a crime, that I was still their brother, still a person deserving of love. But the words stuck in my throat, choking me. I left with 1 bag of clothes, my art supplies, and 3,001 in my pocket. They didn't even let me take my paintings. Said they were property of the household, paid for with family money. It was snowing when I stepped onto the street. I was 19 years old, an omega with no family, no home, and no idea how to survive. But as I walked away from that house, that prison of expectations and disappointments, something strange happened. I felt the first spark of something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. The first week was the hardest. I couldn't go back to my university dorm, it was paid for by my family, and I knew they'd cut that off immediately. I spent the first 3 nights in a PC Bang, one of those 24-hour internet cafes where you could rent a computer station and stay warm. I dozed in the chair, jerking awake every time someone walked by, terrified of being vulnerable while unconscious. As an Omega, the dangers were real and present. Without heat suppressants, my cycle would come, and without a safe place to weather it, I could be in serious danger. That fear gnawed at me constantly. On the 4th day, I counted my remaining money, 1,201. Not enough for another night at the PC Bang. Not enough for more than one meal. I stood on a street corner in Hongdae watching people pass by, and I realized with crystalline clarity, I could die out here. People did. Rejected Omegas, especially, often didn't survive long on the streets. But I'd also realized something else in those 3 sleepless nights. I didn't want to die. Despite everything, despite the pain and rejection and loneliness, I wanted to live. I wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted to succeed. I wanted to paint. I found a homeless shelter that accepted Omegas. It was crowded, barely heated, and I had to be out by 7 a.m. every morning, but it was somewhere to sleep. The staff gave me information about Omega support services, about programs that could help me get suppressants and medical care. "You're young," the shelter coordinator, an older beta woman named Mrs. Shin, told me. "You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't give up." "I won't," I promised, and I meant it. I started looking for work. Any work. I had no degree, no references, and couldn't list my family as contacts. I was, on paper, nobody. The first job I got was washing dishes at a ramen restaurant in Gangnam. The owner, Mr. Cho, hired me on the spot when I told him I'd work any hours, any shift. The pay was barely minimum wage, but it came with 1 free meal per shift, which made all the difference. I worked from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., washing dishes in scalding water until my hands were raw and red. Then I'd return to the shelter, sleep for a few hours, and spend my afternoons looking for more work. The second job was handing out flyers for a shopping mall. 4 hours of standing in the cold, trying to press colorful papers into the hands of people who mostly ignored me. But it paid. The third job was stocking shelves at a convenience store. The fourth was cleaning office buildings. Within a month, I was working 4 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night, and barely surviving. My body ached constantly. I lost weight I couldn't afford to lose. There were days I was so tired I could barely stand. But I was making it. Barely, precariously, but I was alive. And whenever I had a spare moment, waiting for a bus, a 15-minute break between jobs, I drew. On napkins, on receipts, on the backs of flyers I was supposed to hand out. I couldn't afford proper art supplies yet, but I could still create. Those sketches kept me sane. They reminded me who I was beneath the exhaustion and fear. 3 months into my new life, I was working the late shift at the convenience store when a group of Alpha College students came in, drunk and loud. I recognized the type immediately, wealthy, privileged, looking for entertainment. They spotted me behind the counter, and something in their expressions made my stomach drop. "Hey Omega," one of them called. "You smell good. When's your heat?" I kept my eyes down. "Can I help you find something?" "Yeah, you can help me find some fun." He leaned over the counter, invading my space. "How much for a night with you?" "I'm not, please step back." "What? You too good for us." Another one circled around the counter. "Working in a convenience store at 2 a.m.? You're clearly not too good for anything." Panic rose in my throat. I reached for the phone to call my manager, but the first Alpha grabbed my wrist. "Don't be rude. We're customers. Let go of me. Make me Omega." "He asked you to let go." The voice came from the entrance, deep, authoritative, leaving no room for argument. The Alphas turned, and I looked up to see a young man standing in the doorway. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features and dark eyes that held absolute confidence. An Alpha, clearly, from his build and presence. He wore a university jacket and carried himself with natural authority. "This doesn't concern you," the Alpha holding my wrist said. "It does when you're harassing someone in my favorite convenience store." The newcomer walked closer, and I felt the shift in the room, the power dynamic changing. "Let him go. Now." "Or what?" "Or I call the police, show them the security footage of you assaulting a store employee, and make sure your families know exactly what you were trying to do. I'm guessing your fathers would be very interested to know how their sons spend their allowances." The threat was calm, casual, but absolutely serious. The Alphas exchanged glances. "Whatever. He's not worth it anyway." They released me and left, muttering insults under their breath. I stood there shaking, my wrist throbbing where I'd been grabbed. "Are you okay?" The stranger approached the counter, concern in his eyes. "I'm fine. Thank you. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did. What they were doing was wrong." He studied me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "You work here often?" "Most nights." "Alone?" "Usually." He frowned. "That's not safe. Especially for an Omega." "I don't have much choice," I said quietly. Something shifted in his expression. Understanding, maybe, or recognition of a fellow person struggling. "I'm Kang Daeho. I'm a student at Yonsei University. Park Chame. It's nice to meet you, Chame-sai. Though I wish it had been under better circumstances." He grabbed a ramen cup and a water bottle. "I come here a lot. Late night studying. If you ever need help, if anyone bothers you again, just call me, okay?" He handed me a business card with his phone number. I took it, not believing I'd ever actually use it. "Thank you, Daeho Sasai. Just Daeho is fine." He smiled, and it transformed his face from intimidating to kind. "See you around, chummy." After he left, I looked at the card, then slipped it into my pocket. I probably wouldn't need it, but I kept it anyway. Daeho became a regular fixture at the convenience store. He'd come in 3 or 4 nights a week, always late, always buying the same things. Ramen, coffee, and sometimes a triangle kimbap. He'd study at one of the small tables near the window, his textbooks spread out, occasionally looking up to make sure I was okay. Before we dive into this heartwarming, emotional, slow burn romance Omegaverse story, note, this is an original work of Milliflex channel. If seen in another channel that is not Milliflex, please report that channel for copyright and impersonation. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. At first I found it strange. Why would a university student from a good school spend his nights in a convenience store? But gradually I began to understand he was like me. Working, studying, struggling. The expensive university jacket was misleading. I noticed it was slightly worn, carefully maintained but years old. "You don't have to keep checking on me," I told him one night during a quiet moment. He looked up from his textbook. "I'm not checking on you. I'm studying." "You're studying in a convenience store at 3 a.m. Best coffee to cost ratio in the neighborhood." He grinned. "Plus, the company's not bad." I felt my cheeks warm and turned away. "You should focus on your work." "I am. But breaks are important too." "Speaking of which," he stood and stretched. "When's your break?" "I don't usually take one." "That's not legal. You're supposed to get at least a 30-minute break in an 8-hour shift." "I know, but..." "Take one now. I'll watch the counter." "You can't just..." "Watch me." He moved behind the counter, shooing me out. "Go. Sit. Eat something. You look exhausted." I wanted to argue, but honestly I was exhausted. My feet ached, my back hurt, and I hadn't eaten since my meal at the restaurant earlier that evening. I grabbed a ramen and sat at Daeho's table, trying not to think about how this was probably against policy. "So," Daeho said, ringing up a customer with practiced ease, "what do you do during the day? Besides your other jobs?" "How did you? You work 4 jobs, don't you? Restaurant, flyers, shelves, and this. I've seen you around the neighborhood." I stirred my ramen, uncomfortable with being so transparent. "I'm trying to save money." "For what?" "University. I want to go back. Study art." His expression brightened. "You're an artist?" I try to be." "Can I see your work?" I hesitated, then pulled out my current sketchbook, a cheap thing I'd bought at a dollar store filled with drawings done in ballpoint pen and pencil. I slid it across the table, my heart pounding. I hadn't shown anyone my art since my family destroyed that Phoenix painting. Daeho flipped through the pages slowly, his expression unreadable. I watched his eyes move across my sketches. A homeless man sleeping on a bench, a mother and child at a bus stop, the Seoul Tower at dawn, abstract swirls of emotion and color rendered in black and white. "Chung-ee," he said finally, looking up. "These are incredible." "They're just sketches." "No. These are really genuinely incredible. The emotion, the composition, the way you capture people's stories in their faces, this is professional level work." My throat tightened. "You don't have to say that. I'm not just saying it. I mean it." He turned the book around, pointing to a sketch of an elderly woman at a market. "Look at this. You can see her whole life in her expression. That's not something you can teach. That's pure talent." Tears pricked my eyes. I looked away, trying to compose myself. "My family didn't think so." "Then your family is wrong." The certainty in his voice undid something in me. Before I could stop myself, I was telling him everything. My family, my struggles in school, the constant disappointment and criticism, being thrown out, surviving on the streets. Words poured from me like water from a broken dam, and Daeho listened to all of it without interrupting, without judging. When I finished, I felt emptied out, vulnerable in a way that terrified me. "I'm sorry," Daeho said quietly. "I'm sorry your family couldn't see what I can see in 5 minutes of looking at your work. I'm sorry they made you feel worthless when you're clearly extraordinary. I'm not extraordinary. I can barely survive. You're surviving 4 jobs with almost no sleep, still finding time to create art, and you haven't given up on your dream. That's pretty extraordinary to me." I didn't know what to say to that. "I'm an orphan," Daeho said after a moment. "My parents died when I was 12. Car accident. I've been in the system ever since, bouncing between foster homes and group homes. I got into Yonsei on a full scholarship, but it only covers tuition. Everything else, housing, food, books, I have to work for." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Don't be. I'm telling you because I want you to know that I understand. Not exactly the same situation, but I understand what it's like to have no safety net, no one to fall back on. We're survivors, you and me." He smiled and something in my chest shifted. Over the following weeks, Daeho and I grew closer. He'd help me with my convenience store shifts, chatting during the quiet hours, helping me restock when it got busy. In return, I'd help him study, reading his notes aloud while he paced, quizzing him on business concepts I barely understood but could memorize long enough to be useful. "You say you're not smart," he told me one night, "but you have excellent memory for auditory information. You're probably not stupid, Chang'e. You probably just learn differently than the way schools teach." The possibility had never occurred to me. Daeho started bringing me art supplies, a pad of real sketch paper, professional pencils, a small watercolor set. "Don't argue," he said when I tried to refuse. "I want to support your dream. Let me. You're already struggling yourself. And I'll keep struggling whether I buy you these or not. But maybe if I help you, you'll succeed faster and then you can help the next person. Pay it forward, you know?" I couldn't argue with that logic. On my rare days off, Daeho would meet me at coffee shops or parks, and I'd sketch while he studied. Sometimes we'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. He told me about his dreams of starting his own business, helping other people who'd struggled like he had. I told him about the gallery I wanted to open someday, a space for art that moved people, that meant something. "We'll both get there," he said with such confidence I almost believed him. 6 months after we met, on a spring evening when the cherry blossoms were blooming, Daeho showed up at the convenience store with a serious expression. "I need to tell you something," he said. My stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I need to be honest with you about something." He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. Daeho was always so confident, so sure of himself. "I like you," he said finally. "More than friends. I've liked you for months now and I can't keep pretending I don't." The world seemed to stop. "I know the timing is terrible," he continued, words tumbling out in a rush. "I know we're both struggling and barely surviving and the last thing either of us needs is a relationship. I know I'm an alpha and you're an omega and there's all this societal baggage around that. But I also know that when I'm with you, everything feels better. Easier. Like I can handle whatever life throws at me as long as you're there. Daeho. You don't have to feel the same way. I just needed you to know." I couldn't keep it in anymore. I looked at him, this strong, kind man who'd appeared in my life like a miracle, who'd never once made me feel less than, who'd seen value in me when no one else had. "I like you too," I whispered. His eyes widened. "Really? Really? I have for a while. I thought you couldn't possibly feel the same about someone like me." "Someone like you? Chang'e, you're incredible. You're talented and resilient and kind despite everything you've been through. I feel the same about you. I feel so much more than that." He reached across the counter and took my hand. His touch was warm, gentle, asking permission even as he held on. "Can I court you properly?" he asked. "I know I can't offer you much right now. No fancy dates or expensive gifts. But I can offer you my heart, my support, my belief in you. Is that enough?" Tears streamed down my face. "It's more than enough. It's everything." He smiled, bright and beautiful, and pulled me closer. "Can I kiss you?" I nodded, and he leaned over the counter, cupping my face with such tenderness it made my heart ache. His lips met mine softly, carefully, like I was something precious. The kiss was gentle and sweet, tasting of coffee and possibility. When we pulled apart, we were both smiling. "I promise you," Daeho said, his forehead resting against mine, "I'm going to work so hard to give us a better life. I'm going to build something real, something stable. And I'm going to support your dreams every step of the way." "I promise the same," I said. "We'll build it together." And for the first time since my family had thrown me away, I felt like I had something worth fighting for beyond mere survival. I had love. I had hope. I had a future. Dating Daeho while we were both struggling was both the hardest and the most beautiful thing I'd ever experienced. Our dates consisted of walking along the Han River, sharing a single serving of tteokbokki, visiting free art exhibits at small galleries in Hongdae. Daeho would bring me wildflowers he'd picked on the way to meet me. I'd sketch portraits of him in my increasingly battered notebooks. "You make me look too handsome," he'd complain, laughing. "I draw what I see," I'd reply, and he'd kiss me soft and sweet. Those stolen moments of happiness sustained me through the grinding difficulty of my daily life. Working 4 jobs was destroying me physically. I was always tired, always sore, barely eating enough. But Daeho was working just as hard, and together we survived. He graduated from university a year after we started dating. I attended his graduation ceremony, sitting in the back, bursting with pride as he walked across the stage to receive his degree in business administration. He'd graduated with honors despite working multiple jobs throughout his entire university career. "I'm going to do something with this," he told me that evening as we celebrated with cheap soju and convenience store snacks on the rooftop of my latest housing situation, a cramped gashawon barely bigger than a closet. "I'm going to build something real." "I know you will," I said, believing it completely. Daeho started working at a mid-sized company, but he hated it almost immediately. The corporate culture was toxic, the work unfulfilling, the pay barely better than what he'd made cobbling together part-time jobs. But he stuck with it because it was stable, because it was a path forward. Meanwhile, I'd finally saved enough to re-enroll in university. Not at my original school, but at a smaller arts college that offered evening classes for working students. My portfolio, built over 2 years of sketching every spare moment, had impressed the admissions committee enough to offer me a partial scholarship. "I'm so proud of you," Daeho said when I got the acceptance letter, spinning me around in his tiny apartment. "I knew you could do it." University was still difficult for me. The academic courses, art history, art theory, were challenging, the information still slipping through my mind like water. But the studio courses? Those I excelled in. My professors praised my technique, my emotional depth, my unique perspective. "You see the world differently," Professor Kim told me during a critique. "That's a gift. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like it's a weakness." I thought of my family, of all the times they'd told me I was deficient, broken, wrong. And I realized that what they'd seen as a flaw was actually my greatest strength. My brain worked differently, yes, but differently didn't mean less than. It meant unique, original, valuable. I threw myself into my art with renewed passion. I painted during every spare moment, before work, after classes, on my days off. I painted my struggles, my pain, but also my joy. I painted Daeho's smile, the kindness of Mrs. Shin at the shelter, the beauty I found in Seoul's forgotten corners. Daeho, meanwhile, had quit his corporate job. It was a terrifying decision. We both knew the risks of giving up stable income. But he'd been developing a business plan for months, working on it late into the night. "I want to start a consulting company," he explained, showing me his meticulously researched plans. "Small businesses need help with strategy, management, market analysis, but they can't afford the big consulting firms. I can offer those services at prices they can manage." "It's risky," I said, though I supported him completely. "Everything worth doing is risky. You took a risk going back to school. I'm taking a risk on this." He started his company with nothing but determination and his laptop. The first year was brutal. He worked 18-hour days, taking any client who'd have him, building his reputation project by project. There were weeks he made almost nothing. Weeks we survived on my income from my remaining 2 part-time jobs and worried about making rent. But slowly, painfully, it started to work. Daeho was brilliant at what he did. His clients loved him, referred him to others. His company, DH Consulting, began to grow. He hired his first employee, then his second. Started renting a small office. Within 3 years, he had 15 employees and a steady stream of clients. "We're going to make it," he told me on the night he signed his first major contract, a 6-month consulting deal with a mid-sized manufacturer. "I can feel it. We're actually going to make it." I'd graduated by then, barely scraping by with a 2.2 GPA in my academic courses but top marks in all my studio classes. I'd started showing my work at small galleries, selling pieces here and there for modest prices. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was a start. On our 4th anniversary together, Daeho took me to a restaurant. A real restaurant, not a pojangmaka or convenience store. We sat across from each other in the warm light, and he took my hand across the table. "I want to spend my life with you," he said. "I want to build our dreams together. I want to support your art and watch you become everything I know you can be." My heart was pounding. Daeho. Marry me, Chang'e. Be my husband. Let me be yours. He pulled out a simple silver band, nothing expensive but perfect in its simplicity. Yes, I said, tears streaming down my face. Yes, of course, yes. We kissed across the table and I felt like the luckiest person in the world. We got married in a small ceremony at a courthouse, with Mrs. Shin and a few of Daeho's co-workers as witnesses. We couldn't afford a big wedding, and neither of us had family to invite anyway. But it didn't matter. What mattered was the vows we made to each other, the promise to stand together no matter what. After the ceremony, Daeho took me to a small apartment. 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, but clean and safe in ours. I signed the lease yesterday, he said, grinning. Welcome home, husband. I couldn't speak through my tears. I just held him, this incredible man who'd seen me when I was nothing and loved me anyway. That night, alone in our new home, we made love for the first time. Daeho was gentle, reverent, treating me like I was made of something precious. His hands trembled as he undressed me, his kisses soft and seeking. We took our time exploring each other, learning what brought pleasure, what made the other gasp. When he finally joined with me, moving slowly and carefully, I felt complete in a way I never had before. We were 2 broken people becoming something whole together. I love you, he whispered against my skin, and I said it back over and over, until the words became a prayer. Afterward, we lay tangled together, his arms around me, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. We're going to have everything, he murmured. I'm going to work so hard, chummy. I'm going to build an empire, and I'm going to make sure you have the gallery you've dreamed of. We'll build it together, I said, the same promise we'd made to each other years ago. Always together. The next 5 years were a blur of work, growth, and gradual success. Daeho's company exploded. What had started as a one-man consulting operation grew into a legitimate firm with over 50 employees, major corporate clients, and revenue that seemed impossible to someone who'd once survived on ramen and hope. He moved the company into a proper office building in Gangnam, hired a management team, expanded into new markets. I never forget where I came from, he told me one evening, looking out over Seoul from his office window. Every success feels like a miracle. It's not a miracle, I said. It's your hard work paying off. Our hard work, he corrected, pulling me close. I couldn't have done any of this without you. While Daeho built his business empire, I built my artistic reputation. I'd started getting shows at better galleries, selling pieces for real money, building a name for myself in Seoul's art scene. Critics called my work emotionally raw and hauntingly beautiful. People connected with the pain and hope in my paintings, the stories I told through color and composition. 3 years after our marriage, I took the biggest risk of my life. I opened my own gallery. It was small, tucked into a back street in Samcheongdong, but it was mine. Chang'e Gallery specialized in work by emerging artists, particularly those who'd struggled, who'd been told they weren't good enough, who painted despite the world telling them to stop. This is for everyone who was ever told their art didn't matter, I said at the opening, looking at the crowd of artists and art lovers who'd come to support me. This is for everyone who creates because they have to, because it's the only thing that makes sense. The gallery was successful beyond my dreams. Within a year, I was representing 15 artists. Within 2 years, Chang'e Gallery was one of the most talked about spaces for contemporary art in Seoul. I was featured in art magazines, interviewed on podcasts, invited to speak at universities about pursuing art despite obstacles. My own paintings sold for prices I'd once thought impossible. Millions of won for a single piece. Look at you, Daeho said one evening, reading an article about me in a prestigious art journal. My brilliant, talented husband. Look at us, I corrected. We made it, Daeho. We actually made it. On our 7th anniversary, as we celebrated in the home we'd bought, a real house with multiple rooms and a studio space for my painting, Daeho handed me a small box. What's this? I asked. Open it. Inside were 2 pairs of small shoes, baby shoes, one in blue, one in green. I looked up at him, my heart in my throat. Are you saying? I want to have a family with you. I want to give a child the love and support we never had. I want to build something that matters beyond money and success. His eyes were shining. What do you think? I kissed him, deep and passionate. I think yes. Absolutely yes. We started the surrogacy process the following month. It was expensive, complicated, and emotionally draining, but we persevered. We found a wonderful surrogate, went through the medical procedures, waited anxiously through the pregnancy. And then, 3 years into our marriage, on a snowy December evening, our twins were born. 2 perfect boys, Kang Minjun and Kang Seojun. I held them in the hospital, these tiny miracles, and cried. Daeho stood beside me, his arm around my shoulders, tears streaming down his face too. We're fathers, he whispered. We're fathers, I repeated, awed. Being parents was harder than anything we'd done before, but also more rewarding. Watching our sons grow, seeing them take their first steps, hearing their first words, it healed something in me I hadn't realized was still broken. I was determined to be everything my parents weren't. I praised my boys for everything, their attempts at drawing, their nonsensical stories, their curiosity about the world. I told them they were loved, valued, perfect exactly as they were. You're a wonderful father, Daeho told me one evening as we watched the twins sleep. I'm trying to be what I needed, I said. That's all. The years passed in a blur of happiness. Daeho's company continued to grow. My gallery expanded to 2 locations. Our sons thrived, growing into bright, happy children. We bought a bigger house, traveled together as a family, built the life we'd once only dreamed of. And then, 5 years after our sons were born, 8 years after I'd been thrown out of my family's home, my phone rang with a number I'd deleted long ago but still recognized. My brother Min-jae. I stared at the screen, my hand shaking. Daeho looked up from where he was helping the twins with a puzzle. Who is it? He asked. My family, I whispered. Do you want to answer? Did I? After everything they'd done, everything they'd said, did I want to hear their voices? But curiosity won out. I answered. Hello. Chang'e. Min-jae's voice was strained, older sounding than I remembered. It's me. We need to talk. What do you want? The company is in trouble. Serious trouble. Father made some bad investments and now we're facing bankruptcy. The creditors are circling. We're going to lose everything. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pain, nothing. Why are you telling me this? Because we need help. Your husband's company is successful. If DH Consulting could acquire part of our company, provide capital, you could save us. You want my husband to bail you out. We're family, Chang'e. You can't just abandon us. The audacity of it stole my breath. Abandon you? I didn't abandon you. You threw me away like garbage. You told me I was worthless, that I'd never make anything of myself. You destroyed my art. You kicked me out with nothing. We were wrong, Min-jae said, and there was something desperate in his voice. We were wrong about you. We see that now. You've been incredibly successful. Your gallery, your reputation, you've made something of yourself. Father was wrong. Mother was wrong. We all were. And now you want my help. Please. We're begging you. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the moment. This was what I'd wanted once, for them to need me to come crawling back to see what they'd lost. Let me talk to Daeho, I said. I'll call you back. I hung up and looked at my husband. The twins had wandered off to play, leaving us alone. They want you to save their company, I said. I heard. What do you want to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? I want them to understand what they did to me, I said slowly. I want them to know what it felt like to have nothing, to be rejected by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. Daeho nodded, waiting. But I also don't want to be cruel. I don't want to become them. Then what's the middle ground? I thought about it for a long time and slowly an idea formed. I called a family meeting. My family. All of them. We met at a neutral location, a conference room Daeho rented for the occasion. My father, my mother, my 3 siblings, all sitting on one side of a long table. Daeho and I sat on the other side, a physical manifestation of the divide between us. They looked older. My father's hair was nearly all gray now, my mother's face lined with stress. Even my siblings looked diminished somehow, the arrogance gone from their expressions. Thank you for meeting with us, my father said, and the humility in his voice was jarring. This was a man who'd never thanked me for anything. Let's be clear about why we're here, I said, keeping my voice steady. You need financial help. Daeho's company could provide it. But before we discuss that, I need some things from you. Anything, my mother said quickly. Whatever you need. First, I need you to acknowledge what you did to me. Not just that you were wrong. I need you to say it clearly, you abused me emotionally and psychologically. You made me feel worthless for circumstances beyond my control. You threw your child onto the streets with no resources and no safety. Say it. The silence was thick. Ji-won looked down at her hands. Sung-min shifted uncomfortably. Min-jae's jaw was tight. My father started, then stopped. We treated you horribly. We failed you as parents. We were cruel and unjust. More specific, I insisted. He took a breath. We told you that you were worthless. We compared you unfairly to your siblings. We dismissed your talent because it didn't fit our narrow vision of success. We threw you out because you didn't meet our impossible standards. We abandoned our child when he needed us most. And we were wrong. Completely, inexcusably wrong. My mother was crying silently. I'm so sorry, Chummy. I'm so sorry. You destroyed my art, I continued, looking at my father. You broke my Phoenix painting. Do you remember that? I remember. His voice was barely audible. That painting represented everything I was trying to become. And you destroyed it because you couldn't see its value. Couldn't see my value. I know. And I've regretted it every day since. I didn't know if I believed that, but I let it pass. I built a life despite you. Not because of you, despite you. I worked 4 jobs while barely surviving. I found someone who loved me for who I was. I went back to school. I built my career. I succeeded in ways you said were impossible. We know, Ji-won said, speaking for the first time. We followed your career. Your gallery is famous. Your paintings sell for millions. You've achieved things we never dreamed of. And you want me to save you now. We're asking, Min-jae said. Not demanding. We have no right to demand anything from you. I looked at Daeho. He nodded slightly, giving me permission to do whatever I needed to do. Here are my conditions, I said. Daeho's company will acquire 40% of your company and provide the capital to stabilize it. But not immediately. What do you mean? My father asked. You're going to experience what I experienced. For 8 years you're going to know what it's like to have nothing. To struggle. To be uncertain about your future. 8 years. My mother's voice shook. We'll lose everything by then. Maybe. Maybe not. You'll have to work, to fight, to build something from nothing. Just like I did. If you can survive 8 years the way I survived, prove that you understand what you put me through, then Daeho will step in. That's. Sungmin started, then stopped. That's cruel. Is it crueler than throwing your 19-year-old son onto the streets? Is it crueler than telling a child he's worthless and stupid? Is it crueler than destroying someone's art because you don't value it? He had no answer. These are my terms, I said. 8 years. Survive them and we'll help. Fail and you're on your own. Those are the only options. What if we can't make it 8 years? My mother asked. Then you'll know exactly how I felt every single day after you threw me away, terrified, desperate, alone. You'll know what it's like to wonder if you'll survive. The room was silent. I accept your terms, my father said finally. We all do. It's more than fair. More than we deserve. One more thing, I added. During these 8 years you don't contact me. You don't ask for updates, exceptions, or assistance. You survive on your own. When the 8 years are up, if you've made it, we'll talk. And if we want to apologize again? To try to rebuild our relationship? Ji-won asked quietly. I considered it. After the 8 years, if you've survived, we can talk about that too. But right now, I don't know if I can have you in my life. You hurt me too deeply. We understand, my mother said. We drew up contracts. Daeho's lawyers handled everything, making sure it was all legal and binding. My family would have to survive on their own for 8 years. After that, if they could prove they genuinely struggled and learned, DH Consulting would step in. As they prepared to leave, my father approached me. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I should have said it every day. You're an extraordinary man, Chummy. An extraordinary artist. An extraordinary person. I'm sorry I couldn't see it when it mattered. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. But I didn't do any of this for you. I did it for me. I know. That makes it even more impressive. After they left, Daeho pulled me into his arms. Are you okay? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. I thought I'd feel satisfaction. Victory. But I just feel tired. That's normal. You set a boundary. You gave them consequences. That takes strength. Was I too harsh? No. You gave them a chance to understand and grow. That's more than a lot of people would do. I leaned into him, taking comfort in his solid presence. I love you. I love you too. And I'm so proud of you. That evening, I went to my studio and started a new painting. I didn't plan it consciously. My hands simply moved, guided by emotion and instinct. When I finished hours later, I stepped back to look at what I'd created. It was a phoenix, rising from ashes, wings spread wide, every feather detailed in gold and crimson and brilliant orange. But this phoenix was different from the one my father had destroyed all those years ago. This one was triumphant. This one had survived. Time moves differently when you're happy. The 8 years passed in a blur of beautiful moments. Watching my sons grow from toddlers into thoughtful, creative boys. Expanding my gallery to 3 locations across Seoul. Creating some of my best work. Paintings that sold at auction for record prices. Pieces that ended up in museums. Daeho's company became one of the top consulting firms in Korea. He was featured in business magazines, invited to speak at conferences, courted by investors wanting to buy him out. But he never forgot where he came from, and neither did I. We established a foundation for struggling artists and at-risk Omega youth, providing scholarships, supplies, and mentorship, helping others achieve their dreams the way we'd achieved ours. This is what success is for, Daeho said at the foundation's 5th anniversary gala. Not just to make ourselves comfortable, but to lift others up. Our sons, Minjun and Seojun, were now 8 years old. Minjun had inherited my love of art, spending hours drawing and painting in the studio I'd built for him. Seojun was more like Daeho, analytical, business-minded, already reading books about entrepreneurship. You can be anything you want, I told them both regularly. Whatever makes you happy, whatever you're passionate about, that's what matters. Even if we're not good at school stuff? Minjun asked one day. Especially then. Being different isn't being less. It's just being you. I thought of my younger self, desperate for someone to say those words to me. The 8 years my family had been given were almost up. Honestly, I'd thought of them less and less as time went on. I was too busy living my life, building my happiness, to dwell on past pain. Then, on a crisp autumn morning, my phone rang. Minjae. It's been 8 years, he said without preamble. Can we meet? My heart raced. Did you make it? We did. Barely. But we made it. We arranged to meet at a cafe in Bukshan. Daeho came with me for support, holding my hand under the table as we waited. My family arrived together and I barely recognized them. They looked humbled. My father's expensive suits were gone, replaced by modest clothing. My mother's designer bags and jewelry were absent. They all looked older, worn, but somehow more real than they'd ever been. Thank you for meeting with us, my father said, sitting down carefully. Tell me about the 8 years, I said. And they did. They told me about selling their mansion, moving into a small apartment. About my brothers taking jobs they'd once considered beneath them. About my sister working as a secretary instead of an executive. About my parents' struggle to rebuild from nothing, to understand what regular people faced every day. It was the hardest thing we've ever done, my mother said. Every day was a struggle. We didn't know if we'd make it to the end of the month, let alone 8 years. But we learned, Ji-won added. We learned what you went through. What we put you through. And we're so sorry. We didn't just survive, Sungmin said. We built something small but honest. A consulting business, nothing like Daeho's of course, but sustainable. We work with small family businesses, helping them avoid the mistakes father made. We help people who remind us of ourselves now, Minjae said. People who've lost everything and need to rebuild. It's taught us humility, empathy. Things we should have learned years ago. I listened to all of it, watching their faces, looking for signs of insincerity. But all I saw was genuine remorse, real growth. Why should I believe this isn't just an act? I asked. That you won't go back to being who you were if Daeho helps you? You shouldn't believe us, my father said. Not based on words alone. Judge us by our actions. Spend time with us. See how we live now. See what we've learned. And if you decide we haven't changed enough, walk away. We'd understand. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, my mother added. I don't know if we deserve that. I'm just asking for a chance to know you. To know our grandchildren if you'd allow it. To rebuild some kind of relationship even if it's not what we had before. What you had before was toxic, Daeho said, speaking for the first time. If you're asking to rebuild that, the answer is no. We don't want that, Ji-won said quickly. We want something new. Something healthier. Something based on mutual respect, not control or expectations. I looked at Daeho. He squeezed my hand, leaving the decision to me. I need time, I said finally. Time to process this. To decide what I want. But I'm willing to try. Slowly. Carefully. That's more than we hoped for, my father said, his voice thick with emotion. Over the following months, we rebuilt our relationship piece by piece. They met my sons, and I watched carefully for any sign of the criticism and comparison that had defined my childhood. But they were wonderful with Minjun and Seojun, praising their drawings, listening to their stories, loving them unconditionally. You're such good fathers, my mother said one day watching Daeho and me play with the boys. You give them everything we should have given you. We give them what every child deserves, I corrected gently. They came to my gallery openings, admiring my work with genuine appreciation. They celebrated when one of my pieces sold at auction for a record price. They asked about my process, my inspiration, my vision, treating my art as valuable, important, meaningful. My father spent an entire afternoon at my gallery, standing in front of a particular painting. When I approached him, I saw tears on his face. "This is the Phoenix," he said quietly. "The one I destroyed. You repainted it." "I painted a new one," I corrected. "Better. Stronger. Triumphant. It's magnificent. You're magnificent." He turned to me. "I destroyed so much, Chang'e. Not just that first painting, but your confidence, your sense of self-worth. I made you believe you were worthless when you were extraordinary all along." "Yes, you did," I said, not sugarcoating it. "You hurt me deeply. Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about it. "I don't know. Maybe someday. But right now, I can accept your apology and appreciate your growth. That's enough." He nodded, understanding. A year after our reunion, true to his word, Daeho's company acquired a significant portion of my family's business and provided the capital they needed to stabilize and grow. But it was a business arrangement handled professionally with clear contracts and expectations. "They've earned this," Daeho told me. "They survived their 8 years. They changed. I respect that." My family's business began to thrive again under new management and with Daeho's strategic guidance. But it was different now. Smaller, more focused on helping others rather than accumulating wealth and power. "We don't need an empire," my father told me. "We just need enough. Enough to live comfortably, to help people, to leave something good behind." The true healing came slowly in small moments. My mother teaching Minjun how to paint traditional Korean designs. My father playing chess with Seo-jun, praising him when he lost rather than criticizing. My siblings becoming actual aunts and uncles rather than distant figures of judgment. On my 40th birthday, my family threw me a party. It was the first time they'd ever celebrated me specifically, not just as an afterthought to someone else's achievement. "To Chang'e," my father said, raising his glass. "An extraordinary artist, a wonderful father, and an inspiration. We're so grateful to have you back in our lives, even though we don't deserve it." "To Chang'e," everyone echoed. I looked around the room, at my family who'd hurt me but had grown, at Daeho who'd saved me, at my sons who'd healed me, at the life I'd built from nothing. "Thank you," I said. "All of you. Even you," I added, looking at my parents and siblings. "Because your rejection forced me to find my own strength. Your cruelty taught me compassion. Your absence showed me what unconditional love should look like." "We wish we'd been better," my mother said. "So do I. But we can't change the past. We can only build a better future." That night, lying in bed with Daeho, our sons asleep down the hall, I felt a peace I'd never experienced before. "I never thought I'd forgive them," I admitted. "Have you?" he asked. "I'm getting there. It's not complete and maybe it never will be. But I'm letting go of the anger. It was too heavy to carry anymore." "I'm proud of you," Daeho said, kissing my forehead. "You're the strongest person I know." "We're strong together," I corrected, the same thing we'd said to each other for over 15 years. "Always together," he agreed. 5 more years passed. My gallery celebrated its 15th anniversary as one of Seoul's premier contemporary art spaces. I'd represented over 100 artists by then, many of whom had gone on to international acclaim. My own work was featured in museums worldwide, studied in art schools, collected by serious patrons. But my proudest achievement wasn't any painting or gallery success. It was my family. My sons, now 13, were thriving. Minjun had just had his first solo show at my gallery, a collection of abstract pieces that showed remarkable talent and emotional depth. Seo-jun had started a small business helping other kids with their homework, already demonstrating his father's entrepreneurial spirit. "I'm so proud of both of you," I told them after Minjun's opening. "Not because you're successful, but because you're kind, thoughtful, and true to yourselves. You and Papa taught us that," Minjun said. "Being yourself is the only thing that matters," Seo-jun added. Daeho's company had expanded internationally, with offices in 5 countries. But he still made time for family, still came home for dinner every night, still treated our relationship as his greatest achievement. "Nothing I build in business will ever be as important as what we've built together," he told me on our 20th anniversary. My relationship with my birth family had stabilized into something healthy. We weren't close the way some families were, there was too much history for that. But we cared for each other, supported each other, celebrated each other's victories. My parents had become genuinely good grandparents, doting on Minjun and Seo-jun without the toxic expectations they'd placed on me and my siblings. My siblings had become friends of a sort, people I could have dinner with and enjoy their company. "You saved us," Ji-won told me one evening. "Not just financially. You saved us from becoming completely hollow people." "You saved yourselves," I corrected. "You did the work. I just gave you the push." On a spring afternoon, I stood in my studio working on a new piece. It was for a retrospective exhibition of my life's work, a show that would span 25 years of painting. The piece I was working on was special. It showed a figure, androgynous, ethereal, standing at a crossroads. Behind them, darkness and flames. Ahead, a path leading toward light. In their hands, a paintbrush. It was my story. Our story. The journey from rejection to redemption, from pain to peace, from being told I was worthless to knowing I was enough. Daeho came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "It's us," I said. "Everything we've been through. Everything we've overcome." "What are you calling it?" I thought for a moment. "The canvas of my heart." "Perfect." We stood there together, looking at the painting, and I thought about that frightened 19-year-old who'd been thrown onto the streets with nothing. Who'd been told he was worthless, stupid, a disappointment. If I could go back and tell him anything, I'd tell him this. You're enough. You're talented. You are worthy of love. The people who can't see that are wrong, not you. Keep painting. Keep fighting. Keep believing in yourself. Because one day you'll stand in your own studio, in your own home, with your own family, and you'll realize that you didn't just survive. You thrived. You became exactly who you were meant to be. And it was worth every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt. Because the canvas of your heart, painted with pain and love and resilience, will become the most beautiful thing you've ever created. The gallery opening had been exhausting but exhilarating. 300 guests, countless conversations, and the satisfaction of watching another emerging artist's work find appreciation and buyers. As the owner of Chang'e Gallery, these nights filled me with purpose, but they also left me drained. Daeho picked me up at 11 as he always did after my evening events. Even after all these years together, my heart still skipped when I saw him waiting by his car, that soft smile reserved just for me lighting up his face. "How did it go?" he asked, pulling me into his arms right there on the sidewalk. "Beautifully. Lee Jinyoung sold 8 pieces. She was crying with joy. Just like someone else I know at their first real sale," he teased, kissing my temple. I leaned into him, breathing in his familiar scent, sandalwood and something uniquely him. That was a lifetime ago. 15 years. But I remember it like yesterday. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining automatically. "Come on, let's go home. The boys are at your parents' for the night." Something in his tone made me look up at him. There was warmth in his eyes, intention, promise. Even after 15 years of marriage, he could still make me blush. The drive home was quiet, comfortable. His hand rested on my thigh, thumb drawing absent circles that sent pleasant tingles through me. We'd learned each other so thoroughly over the years, every touch, every gesture laden with meaning. Our home was dark when we arrived, the boys' absence making it feel larger, quieter. Daeho had lit candles in our bedroom. I could see the soft glow from the hallway. "You planned this," I said, smiling. "I always plan for you," he replied, drawing me close. "You work so hard, do so much for everyone else. I wanted tonight to be just for us." He cupped my face in his hands, those strong, capable hands that had built an empire but touched me with infinite gentleness. When he kissed me, it was slow and deep, a kiss that spoke of years of love and devotion. "I love you," he murmured against my lips. "Every day I love you more." "Show me," I whispered back. He led me to our bedroom, where rose petals were scattered across the bed, candles flickering on every surface. It was romantic in a way that made my chest ache with tenderness. Daeho undressed me slowly, reverently, as if I were something precious. His lips followed his hands, kissing my shoulders, my collarbone, the sensitive spot behind my ear that he'd discovered years ago and never forgot. "You're so beautiful," he said, and I believed him because his eyes held nothing but truth. I reached for him, unbuttoning his shirt with trembling fingers. Even after all this time, anticipation made me nervous in the best way. We'd made love countless times, but it never became routine, never lost its magic. We came together on our bed, skin against skin, heartbeat against heartbeat. Daeho took his time as he always did, learning me anew, finding every place that made me gasp, building pleasure slowly like a crescendo. "Okay?" he whispered, always checking, always making sure. "Perfect," I breathed. "Always perfect with you." When we finally joined completely, I felt that sense of wholeness that only came with him. We moved together in a rhythm perfected over years, giving and receiving pleasure in equal measure. His hands were everywhere, in my hair, on my skin, holding me close. My own hands traced the muscles of his back, feeling them flex as he moved. "Chang'e," he gasped, my name a prayer on his lips. I couldn't form words, could only hold him tighter, let him know through touch what I felt. Love, gratitude, desire, devotion, everything we'd built together cresting like a wave. We reached our peak together as we so often did, crying out softly into the candlelit quiet. Afterward, we lay tangled in each other, skin cooling, hearts slowing, completely content. Daeho pulled the covers over us and gathered me against his chest. I rested my head over his heart, listening to its steady rhythm. I was thinking, he said softly, his fingers trailing patterns on my bare shoulder. Oh, what would you think about having another child? I lifted my head to look at him. Really? The boys are 13 now, almost grown, and I loved raising them with you so much. I think we have more love to give. My heart swelled. I'd love that. I've been thinking the same thing actually. His smile was radiant. Yeah. Maybe a daughter this time? A daughter would be perfect. He kissed me softly. We could start the process next month. Talk to our surrogate coordinator, begin the planning. I can't wait to tell the boys they'll be big brothers again. They'll be thrilled. Minjun especially, he's been asking about siblings. We talked late into the night, planning and dreaming, imagining the daughter we'd welcome into our family. Eventually we made love again, slower this time, savoring every moment, every touch, every whispered word of love. The call came at 6 a.m. She's here, our surrogate, Jihai said through happy tears. Your daughter is here. Daeho and I rushed to the hospital, the boys in tow, all of us too excited to care about the early hour. When we finally saw her, tiny, perfect, with a small tuft of dark hair and the most beautiful face I'd ever seen, I fell in love instantly. She's perfect, Minjun whispered, peering at his sister. Can I hold her? Seojun asked. The nurse placed her carefully in my arms, and I felt complete in a way I couldn't describe. Daeho stood beside me, his arm around my shoulders, tears streaming down his face. What should we name her? He asked. I looked at our daughter, at this miracle we'd created together. Hannah. It means one, but also flower, and hope. Kang Hannah, Daeho said, testing it out. It's perfect. She's perfect. Minjun and Seojun took turns holding their sister, both of them instantly protective and adoring. Watching them, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This family, this beautiful, loving, unconventional family, was everything I'd never dared to dream of when I was young and alone and broken. Thank you, I told Daeho quietly while the boys were distracted with Hannah. For what? For seeing me when no one else did. For loving me when I couldn't love myself. For building this life with me. For everything. He kissed me soft and sweet. You don't have to thank me for loving you. It's the easiest thing I've ever done. Hannah's laughter filled our home as she ran through the hallway, her brothers chasing her in an elaborate game only they understood. At 5 years old, she was bright, creative, and utterly fearless, a perfect blend of both her fathers. Papa, she called, running to where Daeho and I sat in the living room. Look what I painted. She held up a colorful abstract piece, all bold strokes and brilliant colors. It's beautiful, sweetheart, I said, pulling her onto my lap. Tell me about it. It's our family. See, that's you and Papa, and that's Minjun and Seojun, and that's me. We're all together and happy. My throat tightened with emotion. We are happy, aren't we? The happiest, she declared, throwing her arms around my neck. Daeho reached over and took my hand, squeezing gently. Across the room, Minjun was sketching while Seojun worked on his laptop, both of them content in their pursuits. This was my masterpiece. Not the paintings that hung in museums, not the gallery that bore my name, not the acclaim or the success. This family, this love, this life we'd built from nothing. That night, after the children were in bed, Daeho and I stood on our balcony, looking out over Seoul's glittering lights. Do you ever think about how far we've come? I asked. Every day, he replied, wrapping his arms around me from behind. From a convenience store at 3 a.m. to this. It doesn't seem real sometimes. But it is real. We made it real. We did. He turned me in his arms, looking at me with eyes full of love. And I'd do it all again. Every struggle, every hardship, every moment of doubt, I'd go through it all again if it meant ending up here with you. I kissed him, pouring 20 years of love into that kiss. When we pulled apart, we were both smiling. Come to bed, he whispered. Let me show you how much I love you. And he did, with touches that still made me tremble, whispers that still made me blush, a tenderness that had only deepened over 2 decades together. Later, lying in his arms in the dark, I thought about that frightened boy I'd been, the one who thought he was worthless, who believed he'd never be loved, who couldn't imagine a future beyond survival. If I could tell him anything, I'd tell him this. Hold on. Keep fighting. Keep creating. Keep believing. Because love is coming. Family is coming. Joy is coming. Everything you've dreamed of and more is waiting for you. And it will be more beautiful than you could ever imagine. Daeho's breathing deepened as he fell asleep, his arms still wrapped protectively around me. I closed my eyes, completely at peace. My canvas had been blank once, marked only by pain and rejection. But I'd painted something beautiful on it after all. I'd painted love.